The ATO, the Australian Tax Office, could soon be able to read your emails, according to new advice handed down by a parliamentary inquiry. It is all part of a story that is being covered by our guest this week, Claire Reilly. Exactly what is it that's about to happen, maybe?
There's a joint parliamentary inquiry into financial crime, and they've handed down a number of recommendations. And one of those recommendations, buried down at number 33 or something, was, hey guys, let's make the ATO a criminal law enforcement agency. One, I don't think the ATO people are cool enough to be a criminal law enforcement agency. I don't think they look good in the uniforms. Pretty boring
cops in my time.
But essentially, that small change would bring with it a raft of new powers, one of which would be new powers under the Telecommunications Interception and Access Act. Now, the TIA Act is a long and heartily boring act, but it's really important because it essentially legislates how our telecommunications information can be accessed by the cops, by ASIC, how it was previously accessed by the RSPCA and Blacktown Council. What the government did in restructuring that act under the big data retention debate that we saw earlier this year that was passed in March was essentially try and reduce the number of agencies that could access details about who you're calling, what time you're calling. But this joint committee has said, well, the ATO needs to be able to investigate serious financial crime. So we think that they should be granted access to things like phone taps and the content of communications. So metadata was all about the information around what time you're texting or the address you're emailing. But this would be actual content of communications. Opens some serious privacy concerns. The big question that Senator Scott Ludlam, I know, was really pushing very hard around the debate around data retention, which was scope creep, which is the idea that you set laws in stone and you say, all right, well, it's only these agencies, only the police. But actually, we're going to just do this little legislative change to this particular instrument over here. And all right, now it's only these guys. It's only a recommendation, but there's a risk of scope creep.
Okay. Is there anything in the legislation to dictate that this would only be used for large financial implications, as in it couldn't necessarily be used for Joe Bloggs? Is there anything to define its purpose, when it can be employed?
We don't normally see that in legislation. We see that in the other cool document, which is just as long, called the Explanatory Memorandum. Basically, the government said they wanted to cut down the number of agencies, and it would ensure that access to communications would, quote, be limited to agencies with a demonstrated investigative need. But we saw with data retention, it was like, it's for terrorism and pedophiles, you guys. That's who we're chasing. Suddenly it was like, well, actually, we will also look at regular crime. Actually,
I think that even the phrase demonstrated investigative need, it's almost like they haven't even bothered to limit it all that much at all. Even in that turn of phrase, demonstrated investigative need, it is already so broad. You could already imagine that.
And the thing is, we're seeing this access, it's gone up massively in recent years. And you're right, it's just like, how do you prove it? Do you apply it to the AG and say, we really need it, guys? Oh, well, actually, financial crime is serious. Well, of course it's serious. But suddenly you get a trickle-down effect of, as we saw with data retention, national security, big hot-button issue that suddenly no one is able to debate because if you do, you love terrorists. Pedophiles, oh, do you love pedophiles? Well, then we need your data. And it sort of trickles down to regular crime, and then there was even talk of civil penalties. So that was just regular people suing other regular people. There's a real concern that would come out in family law cases, and the big one that got everyone's attention, though it's probably much less serious, is piracy.
Yeah.
So it's not the first time. We saw Border Force, those lovely guys that did a really great job in Melbourne recently. They were granted access to metadata a couple of months ago. The New South Wales Police has access to your Opal card data so they can track where you're travelling. They also want to access data from financial institutions where you're making transactions and things. It's the debate people always get into, oh, you want these people to get free? It's like, no, but you've got to think about these
broader implications.
Yeah.
I think it's really interesting because just the way you've described how it's all trickling down, it's very similar to that John Oliver story of what do you do when you want to do something evil, package it in something really, really boring.
Yeah.
And this is the thing. No one's going to bother reading all of these explanatory memorandums except
you didn't bank on
this
Claire
one.
Reilly.
God's work, Claire Reilly, is what you are doing here.
It's true, and it's all fine now until you suddenly get a government that wants to use this legislation that is fairly broadly drafted. When they want to do that, they can, because the legislation is there and they can just tweak it, and it only relies on a safe parliament.
There is lots more to this discussion. We're also talking about the brand new Apple products. Also, can you hack your car? That's a terrifying concept, right? You should learn more about it on the audio edition of the show. It is on the RN website right now. Thanks, guys.